Thank you very much for joining us. This lecture is regarding the increase in VAT rate in KSA. As we all know that KSA government has increased the VAT rate from 5% to 15%. And this announcement was made by the KSA government on 11th of May 2020. They said from 1st of July 2020, VAT at the rate of 15% would be applicable in KSA. After this announcement, KSA government has published one guideline in Arabic that deals with the transitional rules due to the increase in VAT rate. So these transitional rule, the summary of the transitional rule is as under. They said if the contract was entered with the government before the announcement date, which was 11th May 2020, then supply will be subject to 5% on earlier of the following. Means till the contract is expiring, till the contract is being renewed till 30th June 2021. So on these supplies 5% VAT will be applicable, and after this VAT at the rate of 15% it will be applicable. So maximum, I can say the ceiling for 5% rate related to the contract that has been signed with the government is 30th June 2021. They further said if this contract has been signed in between announcement date and the implementation date of the new rates, then 5% VAT would be applicable if the supply was delivered before 30th June 2020. Otherwise, rate at the rate of 15% would be applicable. They further said if this contract has been signed between the registered person, contract was entered with the registered person before 11th May 2020, and the registered person has a right to claim input tax, means the customer has a right to claim input tax, then they said 5% rate will be applicable on earlier of the following: time the expiration of the contract, time the contract is being renewed, or 30th June 2021. Again, this is the same thing. Ceiling is till 30th June 2021. They further said if the contract has been signed between the registered person in between 11th of May 2020 till 30th of June 2020, and the supply has been made before 30th June 2020, then 5% rate would be applicable. Otherwise, rate would be 15%. The special rules for the tax invoices. They said if the tax invoices has been issued prior to announcement date and supply is being made before 30th June 2021, then 5% rate would be applicable. On the other hand, supply are being made after 30th June, then 15% rate would be applicable. If this tax invoices has been issued in between 11th of May and 30th of June, then supplies made before 30th June, it will be subject to tax at 5%. If these supplies are being made after 30th June 2020, then rate would be 15%. The guide explains where you are supposed to charge tax at 15%, but you have applied a tax at 5%, then you will be required to issue a separate tax invoice for the additional amount of tax only. I have summarized all these discussions in this slide. I said these are the general rules. General rules are if the supply is being made before 1st July 2020, then 5% rate would be applicable, and if the supply is being made after July 1st 2020, then 15% rate would be applicable. This is straightforward transitional rules. It all depends upon the supply. It doesn't matter have you already issued the invoices or you have already received the money, it doesn't matter. It all straightforward depends upon the supply. But there are some exceptions. These exceptions are invoices have been issued before the announcement date. Contract has been entered with the government before the announcement date. contract has been entered with the registered person before the announcement date. In this situation, if this invoice has been issued before the announcement date and supply is being made after the effective date of the new rate, which is July 1st 2020, then they said 5% can be applied till 30th June 2021. After this, straightforward 15% would be applicable. In the same way, if the contract has been signed with the government entity and this contract has been signed before the announcement date, they said 5% can be applicable on earlier of the followings: 30th June 2021, date of renewal or date of expiry of the contract. Out of these three things, whichever will come first, up to that time 5% will be applicable, and after this 15% rate would be applicable. In the same way, they said if the contract has been entered with the VAT registered parties before 11th May 2020, then 5% would be applicable on earlier of the following. Till 30th June it will be applicable, date of renewal or date of expiry. Out of these three things, whichever will come first, up to that time we will apply 5%, and after that time we will apply 15%. This is the same thing that were discussed in our previous slide also, where the businesses were supposed to charge tax at 15%, but they have charged tax at 5%. Then in this situation, they are liable to issue a tax invoice for the additional VAT amount. Okay, this is a summary that I have prepared based upon the understanding of the guide published by the Saudi government. I have tried my best to make sure to cover everything in the very simplified way. I will wait for your feedback. Might be I have missed something. Your feedback is important to me regarding this slide. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.